making that board, you know, on the TC Snapboard. Tell us about what's in your mind, like in that short amount of time to do that amount of shaping on a board that is literally out of everybody. That's not a normal board that you're shaping. You know, what was in your head?
When I got Pat Rawson's call inviting me to the Boardroom show, I was ecstatic and also terrified because, you know, an hour and a half is not my usual time to shape a surfboard.
Right.
I usually take my time. I'm a backyard shaper, so I take the time that I want, and usually it takes me, like, for a board like that, maybe double the time, like 3 hours.
Okay.
So, for sure in my mind, I didn't sleep, like, until today. Like, tonight is going to be my first night of sleeping because I was so stressed to finish the board, and for me that was the goal. I wanted to finish a clean board, like at the end that I would be proud of.
Right.
And I'm happy with my performance. I tried my best, and definitely that kind of board is a board that is part of my range of shaping. You know,
okay.
I shape surfboard, and then the fact there's no channel and stuff like was very helpful. So I was very pleased with the board I got picked. And yeah, it's been definitely a unique experience, and I'm so happy. And I'm so honored to be here, honestly. No matter what my performance will be, I will be still happy.
I mean, just getting picked, you know, by Pat to participate in it, you know?
Just getting picked on me, when I hang up the phone, I'm like jumping of joy. I was ecstatic.
So we were talking before, and you said, you know, like when you got the call from Pat, you wanted to do the research on the Rawson boards. Like, I was like kind of blown away. Like, where were you doing your research on looking at his stuff?
So yeah, of course, like the first thing I did is like, what kind of board am I going to shape? So I did a lot of research, and I found you guys a YouTube video that is actually describing in detail the shape and what's the dash shape in the water, which is awesome for customers. You know, you want to know what that detail of the shape makes in the water when you ride the board. So of course, all the detail you gave on those boards are very helpful to me, and I was taking notes on your video.
Awesome.
So
thank you. That's awesome to hear. So, I mean, I know that you've been following Pat for a long time, and so, you know, what is it that stands out, like with his boards, that you really admire?
There's not a lot of legend in shaping. He's one of them. It's that legend that, you know, got to move from here to Hawaii, got like integrated in Hawaii, and that's an amazing achievement. I'm myself French, so coming here like in a different country and having people accepting you. I'm always blown away by people that live their dream somewhere else and they're not
that's
from.
a big step, you know, to go into a brand new environment.
So it's an extra challenge, and he's so good. Like, his genius made him like that wonderful shaper, and it's just a legend. What can I say? I mean,
and so if you got to pick one of Pat's boards to have for yourself, what would it be? For your own surfing.
Even for my own surfing, I wouldn't pick something from my own surfing. I would pick one of those guns.
One of the guns?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I wouldn't even want to surf it. That's something that I will like cherish, and it would be like a collector. I just want to have one of those beautiful guns that he made.
Yeah, the lines on those things are incredible. You know, just they're confidence inspiring, you know, or fear inspiring, depending on which side of the fence you're on, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it was incredible watching you shape under pressure, you know, and a board as challenging as that. How, you know, for the people that are watching this video, how can they follow you and like kind of keep up to date with what you're doing?
I'm not sure. I have an Instagram.
So what's your Instagram?
Mermaid Surfboard, so it's spelled M-E-R-E, M-A-D-E Surfboard.
Okay.
And Valerie Duprat, probably they can find it on I don't know, a search Valerie Duprat. I don't have a shop. I don't like, you know, I'm just doing that for fun.
So which is why everybody should do it.
I'm not set up to advertise, so I'm sorry if I don't have something ready, but
Awesome. Well, hey, congratulations again, and just really, really impressive.
Thank you.
Timmy, so Timmy Patterson at the Icons of Foam Boardroom show. Timmy, congratulations on winning the first round against Valerie Duprat.
Yeah, that was pretty good, and we had a blast. You know, it's kind of do it more for just kind of showing with this crowd around here techniques, and like how I do it. I probably do it a little different than everybody. You know, I wish I would have got to watch her.
It was impressive. I mean, actually watching her, and I was bouncing back and forth, watching her, watching you, and I mean, tell us about the time constraint. You know, like doing all of that in an hour and a half.
I'm used to that. I think it's more like, for me, it's just setup. You know, because the vacuum's this, and I usually use a vacuum on it.
Yeah.
I think it's just more setup, just getting used. That's probably a half hour finding tools.
Yeah.
You know, because my saw's here, my planer's here, but it's over here, so you're like
you get lost in there. It's a small room, but you're like looking for stuff.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool, and some of the friends on the outside making me laugh, and that actually relaxed me because they're funny guys.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what about like the choice of boards? You know, like that Pat brought, you know, that TC board to the show, and threw that out right at the beginning. Like what? How did you view that? And like, you know, is that something that you're comfortable shaping?
Yeah. I've done a lot of guns like that. It's kind of like, that was one of the fun things, making them from Mexico in the early, like mid 80s. We were doing a lot, then 90s, early 2000s, a lot were kind of around the world, you know. But to do that iconic board.
Yeah.
I remember being at Pipe watching that, you know.
Right.
Like it was crazy. He comes out of his tube and hooked it. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. It's like snap heard around the world.
Yeah, the whole crowd went crazy.
Like when you were doing that shape, what was the like as far as the accuracy? Like what was the number one thing going through your head? Like in order to like when Pat was looking at it, being like, hey, like Timmy did really well with this.
Thickness, flow, bottom contour, because he has a running bead the whole way, so I got a little reverse, not a ton of rocker, but it's just kind of getting to the measurements. I think mine could have had a little more area up here, but I got it through here.
Okay.
It's one of the main things is that thickness flow, I think.
Okay.
You know, just got to get it, and the rockers. You know, there's a couple things you had to do.
Yeah.
Drop, dig out some of the bottom to get that. I forget what the nose was, 5.5.
Right.
Measure out the 6. So,
and even like all the way out to the ends, you know, like the tail and the
so and
even on a board that bladed out and that thin up front, there's still that Rawson beak, you know, out the front of the board.
So you got a little bit of thickness in the tail, but it's flowed out really nice. So it's just foil, you know, the foil.
Right.
It's like wow. Yeah, I've seen enough of these boards and ridden the field, so.
And not too many people finish early. I saw you like kind of ahead of the game, and then you just put everything down and you walked out, right? Like what, 3 minutes early or something like that?
Yeah, I just polished it out a little more. I got to a point where I kind of relaxed and know the time. Just polishing out, because they're going to be. I think they did auction them off, and the guys that are getting them, I wanted to make sure they'll probably get really. They look really good, all glassed up.
Oh my God, yeah, they're gonna look incredible. Incredible. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on winning the first round. And good luck. You know, good luck with your next shape off.
All right.
Thanks, Sammy.
All right, thank you.
defending champion Aaron Birch moving on. Birch moving on. Sakel. How about a round of applause for both these guys? The two runners.
All right, Ryan Sakel, Icons of Foam, honoring Pat Rawson.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your experience shaping the snapboard, the Tom Carroll snapboard.
Yeah, what a board. That thing's an iconic board. I grew up, idolizing Tommy, and seeing that snap back in the day,
right.
It was like, that was insane. The airbrush and everything, it was just, I can still see it in my mind. So when I saw it was gonna be that board, I was really stoked because one, I get to actually see the board, and two, like I get to have my shot at shaping it. So that was pretty cool.
Your time in the booth, like shaping that thing, like what were the high points where you're like, hey, I'm on this, and then other points like where you felt like, oh, this is getting a lot more challenging?
I think the hardest thing for me was they give you 5 minutes to take the measurements off the original.
Okay.
And so, like that's your first 5 minutes in there, and so your nerves are kind of getting to you a little bit. So I think some of my measurements I was kind of like jumbled a little bit.
Okay.
So that was probably the hardest part for me. And then once I kind of started ripping into the blank and getting the planer going, that just does something to me, kind of mellows me out. And so that kind of got me in just, I guess, in the zone a little bit. I started to like really feel the board and feel what I needed to make out of that blank. But also too, like the other thing was like fine tuning it. Like I kept coming out and feeling the rails and. Yeah, thanks Chris.
And they're big on the numbers.
Yeah.
Big miss numbers? I didn't even see him grab the rails until the very end.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah. So there you go. It was the numbers that decided it. So good to know. But yeah, for me, like it was the fine tuning that I really felt like in tune with that board.
Did you feel like, you're up against Ryan Birch, right? So it was like Battle of the Ryans.
Yeah.
So, and both of you guys were back and forth, like back to that, original board. Like,
okay.
Are each one of those trips like helping you to kind of get, like you said, with those jumbled numbers? Like, was that helping you to get back, back in the game, both mentally and then also with the tune of the board?
Definitely, because you're in there and it's like, okay, this feels good. This is kind of like similar to what I think it is, but then you come out and you feel it. You're like, oh, whoa, it's actually a lot thinner. Or it actually is a little more boxy than I thought, or whatever those aspects of the board that that you're looking for at that moment that you came out of the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, these two were really close. As Pat and Roger shared with you. Unbelievable work, man. Hats off. Like,
thank you.
Especially under the time crunch.
Yeah.
People watching. They got bleachers set up like behind you and everything.
Yeah. No, it's a bubble. It's such a bubble, but. It's an honor to be honoring Pat. Pat is just such an iconic guy to me. Like growing up in the era that I did in the 90s and 2000s, like going to Hawaii and seeing everyone riding his boards, and even before that, flipping through magazines, like you'd see the R arrow. Yeah. And man, I emulated that logo when I was a little kid, and it was just like. Being able to know him and then just given the opportunity to work on this.
And have him choose you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge, accomplishment, like just to have it, because he doesn't there's a limited number of shapers in the event,
I was so honored when I got that phone call.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're not only in the Icons of Foam, but you're also in Best of Show, right?
Yeah. I put a board into the Best in Show, and it's a board that I made myself. And when Ben Ipa passed, I wanted to make a board to just make a tribute to him, just because growing up, like my dad shaped me a few stings, and there's a few stories that, Ben coming up to some guys and saying, hey, that sting's right on.
Right.
And it just, Ben and Aquila and Duke, like they just have a soft spot in my heart, for the tradition of shaping. Like both his sons are shaping. He was a surfer shaper. Akila's like an amazing surfer shaper, and it's just like I can really relate to them. So when his health started going, I was like, I need to make a board to do something
and put your heart into it.
I did,
especially for Best of Show. That's something you really got to pour.
Yeah,
it's got to be all in.
Yeah, it was.
Something like that.
It was, and I made myself one of those boards, and I ended up putting the duo fins in it, and it was a last-minute decision, but it just kind of made sense, and I am blown away how good this board rides. So I'm so stoked to have a board that looks as beautiful as it does.
Right.
But it works really good.
There's so many different things going on. Like we checked out that board when we were at Moonlight.
Yeah.
And there's so many things going on with that board. You know, you got the IPA tribute, you know, with the Sting, but you know, obviously more performance, you know, than the original Stings. There's, you know, way more bladed out up front, way more rocker, and to go the duo fin setup on, you know, as well is really, and then just the finish work on it is beautiful.
Yeah, they did
you know,
a great
I mean,
job
everything
on
that comes out of your guys' factory is that, you know, is going to be at that, or you know, has the ability to be at that level, depending on what you tick off on the order card, you know. But yeah, that thing was cool. It's great that you mentioned those two guys, you know, IPA and Pat. You know, like when the boards got as thin and as bladed out as they, you know, when they hit rock bottom in volume. You know, back when we were younger, I could never get a board thick enough. And the guy that made me a board that was actually thick enough, he's like, oh, I'm just going to go full the other direction. I'm going to give you like an IPA thickness.
Okay,
you know, he brought that back in. And then Rawson actually made me a Sting that I actually have here at the show. It's a 7.2 Rawson Sting.
Nice.
So like, you know, like the fact that you're talking about IPA, that this whole thing is in Pat's, you know, Pat's honor. I've actually, the best day of surfing that I ever had in my life, like the longest, most insane day of surfing ever was actually on that board.
Oh, wow.
On that 7.2 Sting, you know, which obviously he's inspired by IPA as well.
There's something to that design. It really is. And from where the wing is, in front of the wing, and then behind the wing, like foiling it out the way that IPA did. Like he was so onto something, and I just made sure I used that part of his design in that. And man, it works insane.
Awesome. Well, hey, congratulations again on doing so well.
Thank you.
And good luck in Best of Show. Like, you know, when Jeffrey and I checked out that board over at Moonlight, man, it was really impressive. Cool. So we hope you do well. And also really nice meeting your family. Meeting your wife and your son.
Yeah, so stoked to have them.
They were like right on there, like you know, your son was like fully locked in, like watching him remove us.
Doesn't get much better than that.
It was really cool to see. Awesome,
cool.
man. Congrats.
Well, thank you. Thanks, man.
Ryan Birch, Icons of Foam here at the Boardroom show, and you just came out on top, Battle of the Ryans. What was it like in the shaping booth, like, you know, with that challenge in front of you on limited time?
I mean, it's always a challenge to shape a clean board, let alone one that's like identical to the shape of another shaper. So it was just, you know, the typical battle of getting in there and trying to make something clean and accurate.
So, you know, when it came down to it, like those two boards, like between your board and Ryan Sakel's board, were both really close. And it came down to, I think the thing that really won it over was the measurements. You know, the measurements being the closest. Talk about like that 5 minutes that you had to measure the board and like how much work you're putting into that.
I kind of was just screwing around during the 5 minutes because I don't measure them that much. I guess it had measurements on them. And then Pat said that they weren't going to stress the measurements too much, so I don't know. I just kind of went and tried to shape it nice. And
sorry to bother you,
just tried to get the thing.
Bring a saw. Is there any way you could use your handsaw?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
All right.
So Ryan, the thing that you're known about, you know, throughout the surfing world is like all the hand shaping you're doing and all these like one-off shapes and, you know, really being original, like in what you're shaping and what you're riding. Like how, like what you've learned from that process, you know, like how does that apply to something like this where you're trying to replicate a board, you know, from a blank in a limited amount of time?
I mean, this is a better way to really make like a competition format like this, you know, because it's a familiar design. It's a classic design that a lot of people are familiar with, and we're just trying to replicate it, and it's pretty straightforward when it comes to that, you know, just get it the closest you can. So, yeah, I mean, making the boards I usually shape aren't like this at all, so it's a fun,
like this.
Unique challenge for me. And I've always tried to, you know, have the technical parts of my shaping be sound, and this is a good place to come prove that you know, you're a shaper. You're not just making gimmicky, weird boards. So
what about your relationship with Pat? You know, following him, like, you know, when somebody mentions Pat Rawson, like, what do you think?
One of my best friends, Eric Snordham, his dad grew up with Pat, and I remember when we went to the North Shore, Eric got a quiver of Rawsons, and I was always just like, oh, well, I'm never going to be better than him because he's got Rawsons. Like, I've always thought they were insane boards, so it's cool to finally meet your heroes. Like, for me, I'm a bit younger than these guys, so to get to meet them usually for the first time here at events like this, and really to get to inspect their boards for the first time when you're in the bay shaping, it's pretty inspiring stuff. Like, I take away a lot from these events and getting to try to duplicate these classic boards.
Right. So, in the shaping bay, like you said, this is so much different than the TC snapboard is so much different than what you normally ride or what you normally shape. Like, what was the most challenging part?
The most challenging part was just to find out where the foil and the volume was coming out of the blank, really.
Okay.
Because every shaper has it set up different, and the process Rawson uses might be different than mine. So it's just deciphering for me whether the volume's coming out of the deck and the nose and the tail, or the bottom and the nose and the tail, and how many passes I got to take off and where those got to stop and start to make the rocker come out like this and come out with something that's this foiled and this refined. It's just finding it in the blanks the hardest part, for sure.
Right. That's awesome. Well, hey, congratulations on the win, and good luck in the next round.
Right on. Thank you.
What do you think?
Well, the taco shop closes at 7.
More corn dogs?
Got 90 minutes. Had 3 cloggers already. What do you think? A little bit of mustard.
So moving on to shape tomorrow in the semifinals from Hawaii, Bill Barnfield. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Bill Barnfield. Super close.
Icons of Foam. We have Ricky Carroll here, legendary Icons of Foam. What, 3 times?
Three times at the Icon and 1 time at the Florida Boardroom show.
Yeah, unbelievable. Kelly Slater. Kelly Slater, he wins all these world titles, right? They don't ban him from the WSL, right? They just let him keep competing.
Right.
Sometimes they've actually kept you away from this thing. They want to let other people win.
It's been said, but you got to get invited. So I was glad that Pat invited me for this one.
Yeah. Now you guys have a long-standing relationship. So I mean, with him in the honoree position, it was an obvious pick, to pick you. Why don't you give us a little background on your relationship with Pat?
Well, I met Pat the second time around. I started doing locomotion surfboards.
Okay.
The very first time I did it with Natural Art surfboards, and they had the contract to build them. And then the contract got taken to another surfboard factory, and they didn't do well with it. I started my own business in '92, and that's when Pat came up to me at a trade show and said, "We want you to do our boards again."
Right.
And I've been doing them ever since.
And what's the off topic for surfing? Because people could just be like surf, but you have a big music background.
Oh yeah.
And Pat has a big music background. Talk a little bit about the delivery tours on the road.
Yeah, we pulled out this thing called the Shaping Tour. Pat and myself went up the coast, shaped boards at different shops in this mobile shaping room that I have.
Right.
And then it evolved into this giant tour where lots of people went, and we brought a band, and Pat played keyboards, I played drums, my factory manager played guitar and bass, so we just played music, shaped surfboards, and went surfing and had a great time.
That's like incredible. I mean, that's incredible rollout, you know, like just showing up like that, but just the vibe, you know, like it's a really well-rounded vibe and putting that together.
And it was really cool to show people, you know, a lot of people just don't really understand what goes into a handshake. You know,
yeah.
They just don't understand it. When they see it, they're really amazed. They're like, wow, didn't realize it was that hand-shaped.
Yeah, so let's talk about your time in the booth today. And like also your background with like winning this event so many times.
I wanted to meet another friend of mine.
Steve Walden.
Been a while. Commercial break.
We're doing it.
If you are looking for the best board reviews, you go to Real Online, Real Watersports, because you will go down the Christenson surfboards rabbit hole and most likely believe that you need a sea bucket or anything else he makes. He's an incredible shaper, and Trip Foreman, my God, what charisma. Handsome guy, beautiful Toyota Tundra. Just, I like the whole thing over there on the East Coast. Well done, Shaka.
So Ricky, winning this event 3 times, you know, and the Florida event once, and when I was standing outside your booth, I mean, overall, you carry the biggest reputation, you know, coming into these things. I mean, I was here in Legend, Animal, Machine. Like everybody was just like going off about, you know, your efficiency, you know, in the booth and you know, your own shaping on your brand, Takayama, and then at these shaping events. What is it? I mean, what's the secret sauce? Like, what is it that you're doing in there that allows you to do so well at these events?
One, being comfortable shaping in front of people. That helps a lot.
Right.
So I'm not nervous about that. I've done the shaping demos up and down the coast for years. We shaped at the Surf Expo for years. So that helps. The other is just the experience of just doing so many surfboards.
Right.
When you've shaped so many surfboards, especially shaping other people's brands too, you get a feel for different type of rail shapes, different rockers, different looks. So that's the secret of doing well in the shape off, is to replicate someone else's shape, not your own.
Yeah. So in a situation like this where you're trying to replicate a shape, and in your own business, like you're the Takayama shaper for the whole East Coast, right? So does something like that help? Like where you're used to shaping other people's boards, not only your own? Does that help you go into an event like this?
It does, and actually I want to let you know that Jim Hannon is our Takayama shaper, and he's been doing it for quite a time.
Okay.
We've been the Takayama licensee, and I started it first. Then Tommy Moss took over.
Right.
He took over running Donald's factory. So then we have Jimmy Hannon shapes them now.
Okay.
So just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Clarify that.
But
it comes out of our factory, and I see them all the time, and I get to see all these different shapes. And you know, now we're doing Chris's boards. I see Chris Christenson boards. So seeing all the different shapes and different shapers' takes on different boards, you know, that helps.
And what does like taking a board like the TC board, right? The snap, you know, heard around the world. What, taking something like that, which people are just tripping out on how narrow it is and how thin it is and how rockered out it is, and now everything's obviously wider and flatter and like obviously a way more moderate.
Right.
What's it like going back to shaping something like that? Hand shape, not only that, but hand shaping it.
Well, easier for me because just to shape boards like that. So it wasn't foreign to me. There were some guys who weren't, you know, used to seeing shapes like that. Like Bill Barnfield said, I shape boards like that all the time, so I knew that shape.
Right.
So
okay.
That helps.
Okay. Someone in the audience, Bill Rosenblatt, had an awesome question for you. He said the two of you were having a conversation about volume. Right? And how you know, in some applications, let's say if you're comparing apples to apples, that volume can help. But when you're comparing an apple to an orange, that the volume doesn't help. And Bill's example was, you know, like with his own boards, I think it was like a 510 Seaside and or a 770 or 68 Seaside and beyond, like where the volumes are close, but the boards are completely different. Why don't you go into, because I know that especially in this building right now, there's probably a lot more people than you would think that don't really believe in the whole volume thing. So why don't you give us your view on it?
I don't believe in it either.
Why?
But why? Different way. I don't believe in getting your surfboard built on a one single number. Yeah. There's too many aspects of the board that are way more important than that one volume number.
Okay.
I think surfers should learn about how wide their nose is, how wide their tail is, how wide the middle of the board is, how thick is the board, what kind of rocker it has in it. Those things will get you a better surfboard than the volume number. I always tell people, some people come to me, I want a board that has 33 liters of volume. Can you do that? I could shape you a square piece of foam that has 330 liters.
Exactly,
of
right.
It won't ride very good. And too many people are so fixated on this volume number. It's not what you should be fixated on.
Especially if you're talking about boards that are a foot different in length, you know, and then they try and hit the same number. The longer board's just going to be bladed out.
150-pound guy can ride a short board, but what he's going to ride in a long board is going to be so much different. And the number's going to be so different. It's not even a factor anymore. What volume number? It's going to be the dimensions of the board. Is going to be more important than that volume number.
Yeah, the volume thing. I mean, the people seem to be really fixated on just that one number, and it's like, you know, it's the most it's the most recently released dealt out number, you know, and so if you look at it, it would be like if everybody just like worked on lengths and that's it, you know, like a length by itself.
Number. It's about one number. Don't fixate on one number.
Yeah, it's like, sure, I can make you a 7-foot board, you know, like you want to, and you wouldn't even know what the thing would look like, but it would be 7.0, you know. Yeah,
and it's the thing. It's like, you can be off by just a little bit in that volume number and be way off in the shape.
Yeah.
The shape could be so much different.
And, you know, I think a lot of people, they're looking at it from a paddling perspective and a wave catching perspective, where, I mean, my own experience is like the rocker, a lot of times, and the entry rocker can be, you know, way more influential than just sticking a number on a board, you know, especially one that's really short and like quirky and like all like kind of out of whack. The rocker could be a way bigger component.
I've had customers call me and say, "Can you shape me a board at a certain volume?" And it's like, well, what size do you want? How long? What type of style? They don't know any of that. They're fixated on this one number. That one number doesn't fit all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, congrats again for all of your success to date, and also for the board that you put in the event today, like your hand shape today. Ultra close between you and Bill. I mean, that heat was absolutely stacked. You know, the comment you made about like the fact that you were around when these boards, I mean, you know, potentially the only person that was around as much or more, would be Bill. And so to have the two of you in one heat is like, you know,
one more
huge.
comment. The snap that Tommy Carroll did on the board, that pipe, I was on the beach that day.
You were?
Oh, I watched
awesome, man. So what's it like feeling that whole thing come full circle?
We were talking, Bill and I were talking about this before, and when I was up in New Jersey, that board would be one of the boards we would be shaping.
Right, oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome, that's great. Well, hey, Ricky, thank you so much, and thank you for being part of the event. Icons of Foam, we got Bill Barnfield. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. We want to talk about yesterday's heat, Ricky Carroll, and the shape off with Tom Carroll's Snap Heard Round the World board. That was an absolutely stacked heat, and you know, I heard it said again and again, the competition in yesterday was going to boil down to like who was actually around when that board was made, you know, and so you and Ricky being, you know, having probably the most experience in the group, made that a really competitive heat. Talk about shaping that board.
Well, it was a little troublesome for me.
Right.
Because my shaping room at home is really precise for functionality and for me. And I haven't been shaping the last few months. I had a whole bunch of crazy stuff happen in my life, and I just had to put that aside and take care of things. So this was the first board I'd shaped. Oh no, I shaped one other one somewhere back a couple months, in about 6 months. So I was pretty green, flying on the airplane, you know, a little foggy, coming into a weird room.
Yeah, glass booth, people watching, bleachers around you and everything.
And the noise, and it was like so disorienting.
Right.
And I didn't bring a saw, so I had to borrow a saw. It was a pretty terrible saw.
Sorry to bother you.
Just tried to get the thing.
Didn't bring a saw? Is there any way you could use your hand saw?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But anyway, you slowly start to settle in. The problem is, in this environment, you get it like an hour and a half. You don't have much time to settle in. You got to just hit it running, you know. So last time when I was here for Mark Andrini's honorary thing, I ran out of time. I got the board done, but I really couldn't do the finish work. The foam was tearing, and I just went, But so this time I just hauled butt.
Right, they finished earlier than usually end.
Hour.
Okay, wow.
and they showed me the clock And I thought it was the other way around or something. And they go, no, you don't have to finish. You got 28 minutes left.
Right,
and I'm
right.
like, what? So I went in and did a whole bunch of finish work. That probably is what saved me.
Okay.
You know? But for sure, I live in the same environment Pat does.
Yes.
And Pat learned a lot from me, so there's a lot of affinity there.
Right.
And so when I'm shaping something of Pat's, like this, I mean, I don't normally, but if I'm working on this part of the board, I can pretty well project where the lines are going to flow to.
Okay.
Because it's just familiar.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas like when I was doing Mark Andrini's, he does some very unusual stuff.
Yeah,
and
very unique.
And he brought some unusual stuff with him.
Right,
So you have to sit there for a minute and go, man, did I ever make anything like this?
Yeah, you have to learn it almost on the spot.
Yeah, and it'd probably be like being an actor and having to force crying.
Yeah,
You know, wherever that comes from, they can do it. But so, and then I didn't know it when I was planing the board, but as I was fine sanding the board, that's a really important step to me, the blend of all this stuff. And I got to halfway point going towards the tail, and it just faded out on me. And I was like, wow, am I having a stroke or something? You know, I can't see. And I didn't realize it, but half of the lights were out on that side.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so it was just dark, so I flipped the board around.
So you're able to keep going. You're able to keep going.
So there's just a lot of little weird interruptions like that, you know. But I felt like it came out good.
No, it was beautiful. I mean, it was a really, really tight heat. I mean, obviously you won, but you know, by a fraction, you know, and you know, that board, I mean, that board is famous, you know, to this day. You know, that board and that snap, you know, are famous. And there's, you know, other than Pat, there's nobody more experienced than you to explain like why, you know, what did that board do that allowed Tom to do what he did, you know?
Well, before Tommy was getting his boards from Pat, I made all Tom's boards.
Okay.
So, you know, that was another thing I could see in there, that same pattern of evolution.
Right.
So, very familiar.
And, you know, what is it like, you know, whether it be your boards or his boards, you know, that allowed, you know, how much of that was the board and how much of it was Tom? You know, I think people want to know.
No offense to Pat.
Right.
I was there standing on the deck at the Billabong house watching, and we all blew our minds when he did that. But that's Tommy.
Yeah,
he just does stuff like that.
He's crazy.
You can't, I mean, if you worked with him and he said, I want to do this over and over, you could design around it.
Yeah.
But you just have to have a board that is going to accommodate almost any inspirational moment.
Okay.
You know, and that was unusual back then. Tom was the kind of one of the pioneers of that kind of surfing. But now, you know, all the young Brazilian guys, they don't have that greatest surf in Brazil. So they're surfing these closeout beach breaks that give them like 3 seconds to come up with a couple of moves.
Yeah.
And most of it's not in the water, it's in the air because the wave's gonna crash on the sand, right?
Right.
And so now everybody knows how to do that sort of stuff and recover from it.
Yeah.
But, you know, Tom was a huge pioneer of that.
Oh,
and that moment was insane.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I wasn't there, but I mean, to be there and to be able to watch that.
I spent my early life surfing pipeline, so I have a different kind of perspective of really how hard that is to do that kind of stuff. Our boards weren't up to it yet.
Right.
You know, the maneuverability. But once we had multi-fins, it changed everything in pipeline. But shaping to me is almost like I have a 30,000 square foot lawn. And I love mowing it. It takes me like 3 hours. I just get on my little lawnmower.
Yeah. It's the best feeling.
And it's therapeutic as heck.
Yeah.
And shaping, to be honest with you, is the same with me. I don't dislike shaping at all.
Right.
The whole scene kind of bugs me sometimes. But I like to shape. So I just go in there and click into my world. And
so when you're mowing your lawn, do you like rough mow it and then fine mow it?
No, it's too big.
Well, I guess the rough mowing would be with the lawnmower, and then the fine mowing is with the weed whacker around the edge. Well, Bill, thank you so much for spending the time with us. It's an honor to be able to hang out and talk with you about, you know, not only these boards, but just like, you know, your experience to date. And
it's this is a really, I remember reading a quote in Surfer magazine by Jackie Baxter years ago, probably early 70s or late 60s. And he said, the only thing good about the magazine is getting to see pictures of your friends.
Right.
And that's kind of what this is.
So, yeah.
You know, the best thing about it is like, oh wow, I haven't seen you, and you know, having that relationship. That's an amazing thing, you know.
U.S. Brakes honoring Pat Rawson icons of foam, Boardroom Support Shape Off. And this week, we have more coffee, Chris Christenson, from San Cruz, California. More coffee from Santa Cruz, California. And the winner is Chris Christenson.
What's today? What year is it? 9. Come on, camera guy. It should have the date on the inside of the lens there. 9/21.
Icons of Foam, Chris Christenson. Chris, you just got done with your heat. You won your heat. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who are you up against?
I was against Ward Coffees from Santa Cruz. Great shaper, great surfers. Kid's an amazing surfer. I was nervous when I heard I drew him. The board was no walk in the park. It wasn't. You couldn't just like run your plane over the blanket. There was a lot of stuff you had to pick out. You had to pick out the nose. You had to pick out the tail, and then
all right, ladies and gentlemen,
blend everything together. And I wasn't sure I got it or not. I was fighting. I thought I left the nose a little thick. But I did my best. And I got zapped.
So yeah, tell us about the zapping. I guess at some point the planer just started sparking out, or what was going on there?
Shut up!
We have to do it outside. We gotta have everyone.
I had my planer on, and then my blades hit the cord, and then it killed my planer. And then I touched it, got zapped, and then my vacuum clogged 3 times. So luckily they gave me an extra 5 minutes. I got a timeout, and then I borrowed a planer, and yeah, I was nervous.
Any mental setback on borrowing a planer going into the end of it, or?
No, I've always had so many different planers, so it's like walking a dog. I didn't care.
So what's it like? I mean, with that board, you talked a little bit about that board, right? So
well, it's an iconic board, and Rawson's always. I mean, when I started shaping, Rawson was the board I looked at, so I was honored to be picked by him. Carroll was always one of my favorite surfers growing up, and everyone remembers that board, the snap, that pipeline, and it's a beautiful board, and it's not just some board that someone just rolled their plane over and shaped. I mean, there's a lot going on, and it wasn't. I've done a lot of these shape-offs. Other than the chunk of foam contest I was in, that was the hardest one to do, and what was rad is you had to be a shaper to shape that board. Like you couldn't just mow the blank and skin it and sand it and be done with it. Like it was, I liked it. It was a challenge.
What was the hardest part about that shape?
Just hitting the numbers.
Yeah.
Because like you had to like dig out a bunch of stuff out of the nose, a bunch of stuff out of the tail, and like the blank was kind of cattywampus to the measurements. So there's a lot of like picking in certain areas, and then you had to flow it all together. So
right.
Which is rad. I mean, which is why Pat's such a good shaper. He went against the grain of the blank, went how he wanted it to go, and it wasn't easy.
I saw all the Moonlight guys are here.
Yeah.
Brunion, and you had a huge team victory.
Yeah.
Coming. Obviously they're not in there with you, but they're outside the booth supporting you. I saw a lot.
I told them they all get raises.
I saw a lot of high fives on the outside.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, hey, congratulations.
Thanks.
And good luck in the next round.
Thanks for everything, Trip.
7/16. Pat does do volume, so it's 31.9 liters. And this is a stretched out version of the original Impala. Dedicated quad. Good for pumping surf. Tom loves this board. You see it travel with this board quite a bit. It's got a little bit of a beak nose. A lot of foam forward on this thing. Wide point forward. And foam all the way to the nose. Pretty flat deck. And the board's already thin, so the rails still end up being thin. But, you know, as much meat as it carries up here, with all of Pat's boards, like when you get back to the pintail, man, it really thins out.
Well, the winner is Ryan Birch, two-time champion. He's going into the finals. This is the semi-final win for Ryan. Bill, a greatly respected shaper. We really talked about that at advantage, being a close friend of Pat's and an also shaper. But we're very excited. Ryan's going on to the finals. $1,000. Your name onto the Marshall Perpetual Trophy. Ladies and gentlemen, you notice Pat goes back into the finals against Ryan Birch. Well, Pat, you want to let the folks know? Everyone put their hands together when you hear the winner. Well, I don't know who the winner is, so we picked this sport. I think his name's Timmy Patterson. He's one of my best friends. Hands together for Timmy Patterson and Chris Christenson. We couldn't have a tighter finish for the semi-final meet. Timmy's going to go into the final against Ryan Birch.
Boardroom, Icons of Foam, sponsored by US Blanks. We're in the finals. We have Timmy Patterson, Ryan Birch, and the board of choice that Rawson threw at him is Alan Sarlo's Sunset Gun. It's a big board, all right? So 9 feet long, 3.5 inches thick, 20 3/4. If you want to know the float, 67.9 liters. This board's got a bunch of different things going on with it. A lot of foam, so it's like new style as far as the amount of foam that they put into it, but obviously it's got an old school nose on it. This is more like almost like a wine man type of nose as far as like the thinness of it and the rocker up front. Normally if you saw this much meat in the board, it would be more of a beak nose, like a little bit more volume up front. So more rocker up front and thinner and flip in the front. And then going into a little baby squash out the back. The other thing about this board is it's definitely lighter than what you would think for a board this size. 5 fin out the back, a lot of V down the middle, some concaves in it on the sides. Definitely a wild card, you know, like we've been doing like the TC Snap and then TC's 6.6 Impala Quad, and then now totally shifting gears and throwing them a big board, a lot of foam to be shaping in that short amount of time. So we'll see who comes out on top.
With wisdom far beyond his years, has won this before. It's not his first time. Let's see if he's going to make it too. Rounds of foam presented by U.S. Blanks at the Boardroom Surfboard Show is Ryan Birch. He's on with today. Timmy Patterson, come on out here. Ryan is the defending champion of this shape-off. The kid's got amazing skills. Congratulations from Pat Rawson to Timmy and Ryan. They're both winners. And here's the check for Ryan, $1,000, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hands together. Two-time winner, Ryan Birch from right here in Encinitas, California. I know your mom's very proud. She's right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good job.
Serve neutral. Cool.
All right, 2021 Icons of Foam, the Boardroom Show. Ryan Birch, 2-time winner. Ryan, what's it feel like right now? Tell us about the finals round against Timmy Patterson.
Well, I mean, I couldn't imagine ever shaping up against Timmy when I was coming up. I mean, I idolized his shaping along with everyone else who I shaped against today. So I feel super stoked to get the nod from all my peers. And yeah, I'm glad I was able to shape a close enough replica of that big of a board in that span of time. That last one was really challenging.
I mean, it was. You made a comment earlier, you know, like once you heard that, you know, that board was just an absolute, you know, beast, and you know, that's you know, when Pat said, hey, like this is going to be the board, like it's going to be 2 short boards, and then in the end it's going to be an Alan Sarlo gun, just to throw like a total wild card at you guys. What was it like when you saw that board?
I mean, I immediately was like, oh shit, here we go. It's going to have a lot more of a like variance in how the board goes, just because there's such a bigger span to shape. You can't really keep an eye on every little fine detail when you have to cover that much ground in that short of a period of time. So, I mean, Timmy's so good on the planer that I knew it'd just be a planer contest. We were just in there hacking away, and yeah, it was a challenging board to shape, but it's always good to have a challenge, right? That's what everyone comes out to see.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
It's us sweat a little bit, so
yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed watching.
I mean, that board is so interesting because it had like kind of more of the modern thickness to it, you know, but then it went to like almost like an old school, like thinned out, like elf shoe nose on it.
Yeah, and like kind of S-deck foil in the tail, and it had all sorts of crazy things.
And the single concave, that big single with the double in it.
Yep, it was a technical board for sure.
That was, well, yeah, I mean, Pat definitely threw the beast out at the end. Well, anyway, we just wanted to say thank you for spending all the time, like, talking with us in between each of the heats.
Yeah.
And congratulations, man.
Thanks, Trip.
It's a huge win.
Right on.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Monday morning, we are back at Moonlight Glassing, and we got Pat Rawson. The Boardroom show, Icons of Foam Shape Off, all presented by US Blanks, is complete, and I think everybody has a little bit of a trade show hangover, and just from all the excitement, and man, it was a marathon. But you know what, Pat? It was just absolutely impressive, like what was going on there with all the shapers, and then also that this whole show was in your honor. Like, what were your feelings about the show and about the Icons of Foam Shape Off?
What was really unique about the show is that this is our first show since COVID, and so we really didn't have the turnout that normally would have been there, which should have been about 5,000 to 7,000 people for the 2 days. So we had not even a third of that, but that made it intimate. Mm-hmm. And everybody that was there was like a friend of mine, so I might have hugged about 1,000 people over the 2 days. I mean, I'm trying to stay 6 feet away, even though I got my shots and stuff. So physically it's draining, and I think emotionally just meeting so many people. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I really want to comment on, this is nothing about me, I just happen to be the guy on the stage, but my judges were incredible. I had Roger Hines, who's an exceptionally good board builder, and he really is a shaper. He studies everything. And he actually choreographed the 3 boards that we were going to duplicate. I had notes like this long that all he did when I was looking at boards and getting a vibe for is he was measuring. And you were with me, we were kind of, what do you think of that nose? And remember, I would grab a tail, like, I think this tail's too thin, what do you think? And then Tripp would come over, and you were a really good judge. I mean, we got complimented. Scott and Tim go, Tripp is really, that was a good pick. Because I think Roger and I could have done it, but having a third party, it actually kind of kept it where we could, if 2 people, it could be a draw, but when you have a third person, it's like you could have a consensus.
Right? I like the interaction also between the 3 of us and the different judging styles too. Like I thought I think the 3 of us made a really good team on the judges side.
A lot of my family was there, so that was heavy. My son, who does everything in my business, couldn't be there. My granddaughter, I think, my 6th granddaughter is going to be born in the next day or 2. And they shifted the date, so he couldn't be there. But it is what it is, man. We all learn, and it was definitely, this is a new level for, Boardroom's been around for 15 years. I think this year with the live streaming and with keyed-in solutions and stuff, powering that all with their live streaming, which is of course going to be on Surfline. You can just access, I think you can say Pat Rawson Boardroom, and you can get right in. So the first day was completely live streamed. The second day we just put together live TV, like you and
the panel discussion.
You and Bert Huffman and John Peck. What a team, So that's one you guys might want to access as well.
I mean, this was my first Boardroom show, and I just really wanted to share my impression of the show. Like, what Scott Bass and his team, Tim and all the guys and girls that are responsible for putting this show together. I mean, it's a labor of love. It's obvious. It's a passion project. It's definitely not a money maker. There's no reason that these guys and girls would be doing it for the money. I mean, they're doing it because surfboards are their passion. And this is my first time being there, and I cannot wait until next year's show. For any of you that are out there that have heard about the Boardroom show, whether you're in California or whether you're on the East Coast, I mean, it's it's definitely a reason. It's a destination show. Like I would, having seen what I saw this year, I would fly to San Diego and go surfing and go to this show. You know, there was also like in town at the same time, there was a bunch of movie premieres, like surf movie premieres. Surf movie premieres. They had like a film festival there at the same time. You know, really good surfing, really good restaurants. Jeffrey will vouch, really good nightlife. You know, into the wee hours of the morning. They have backwards horse riding available as well in some of the different locations. But you know, I think it's definitely a show that people should check out, and I'm definitely on board, you know, for next year.
Well, your support's really important. You support both David Scales and Scott and their podcasts, and that's, I think the rule now is when people like myself or even Tripp, who's a leader in retail, we need to teach the others. We don't need it all for ourselves because there's way too much.
Let's talk about having Dick Brewer there and what that meant to you, because that was a really special moment. You know, as we came into the finals and Dick was, you know, Dick made his way, you know, into the US Blanks booth, and, you know, he had his hands on the gun, and you could just feel, I mean, you could feel the energy, you know, you could feel the energy from across the hall.
I wouldn't even have been on the judging stand if it hadn't been for Dick. He mentored me. He definitely elevated me above a lot of people, and it really, more than ever, I'm not super self-confident even when I come off like that. I'm really big and loud on the out. I'm a little tiny mouse on the inside.
Yeah.
And he brought that out of me. He says, no, you are going to take it to the next level. And that was before I did. And I just always remembered what he said, and it happened.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I know it meant so much to you to have Dick there, you know, and then also, you know, when we were snapping all those pictures, like Ricky was there, you know, Chris was there, Bill Barnfield was there. You know, yourself and Dick, like all in those pictures all together, like all at once. I mean, it's like an absolute magic moment of the show.
Imagine having, like, Chris wanted to come up and share, because we knew this, that I didn't think that the final, it was actually a lot easier than doing the two semifinals are really hard. I mean, you and I were going, what should we do? And it always would come down to the board. It had the most right things, or if there was something obviously wrong. Timmy's board was spot on perfect in every way. But that last board had, like, you know, like a 16th to an 8th, somewhere in there, of a concave with then double concaves. And, you know, Brian Birch is just an extremely talented guy.
Yeah.
Like Timmy. And Timmy missed that. He was tired. He had just done the heat before. He had maybe 5 minutes to go take a pee and horse down some water, and then he jumped right back in the room.
Right.
I couldn't have done that.
Yeah, I mean, that board was an absolute beast.
Actually,
that was a huge wild card to throw right at the finish line.
Well,
you know?
next year I'd like to have an hour break. So these guys, if there is a double thing where you're going, because obviously one guy's got to jump in the final. It was probably one of the reasons he didn't catch all that. He gets his one eye doesn't see, so he does get fatigued really easy. And I've never seen anybody could do 15 boards a day and not stop.
Yeah.
2 boards an hour, just perfect. Sign in the glass rack. He's just an amazing shaper.
Yeah.
Birch is just really, I think he reminds me of me when I was about his age. Like, he's so good with the planer. Every band is symmetrical. Everything that he did was like, not that Timmy's wasn't. I didn't really watch Timmy, but I thought Ryan, you know, he knows what to do. He's intuitive. He's got a guide here going, I'm just going to take this down first. And I watched him do it.
Well, I think a lot of the, you know, like a lot of his shaping and a lot of his surfing is on the most alternative craft. You know, like he's very free thinking and like in what he's making.
Oh, he's very
I think in order to get a board that big out of a blank, hand shaping in an hour and a half.
Did you see the blank?
I mean, you got to be a free thinker in order to find that board in the middle of that blank. You know, like, and so I mean, I think that was to his credit. You know, that he did so well.
That was like my biggest seller blank, because it was the only thing you could make a 9.0 by, like all those 9.0 and down that we did the Matadors. Well, not even the Matadors, more like the sniper guns and the cheater 5s. It's like you can get everything out of that blank because there's so much room. But to hand shape it, it's like almost 4 3/8 thick. I mean, the board itself, we had to get rid of that much foam.
Yeah.
And it had to be in the right places. You couldn't just take straight passes off the bottom because the tail and nose would have. So there was a lot of work.
Yeah. It was impressive just to watch it, like at the speed that they're going, and with that time crunch and the bleachers right next to the booth and people watching and people banging on the glass and showing you clocks, and there's a lot. There's a lot going on.
And then, like Bassie, when we were planning all this, because it all had to be planned with the US Blanks and having the right foam, right rocker, right stringers, all that stuff had to be planned. Bassie's going, should we throw him a curveball? And I go, no, let's just keep it straight. It's going to be hard enough with just straight.
Yeah.
An hour and a half, 5 minutes to measure the freaking thing. I mean, I can't do that anymore. I won't compete ever again. I'll be happy to be a judge or an honorary judge. So.
Right. So Pat, in closing, congrats again. Icons of Foam, you are the icon, the honoree of this year's Boardroom show.
We had fun, didn't we?
You know, thanks again for inviting me to be part of the judging, and just an incredible show, incredible shape-off competition in your honor, and we're really glad to be a part of it, and also really glad to be a part of what you have going on for as long as we've known you. So that wraps it up. Pat Rawson, Boardroom, Icons of Foam. We'll see you next year.
Aloha. Thank you.